March Madness is in full swing, and we have another Locked On bracket breakdown as Kentucky's dance is done, falling to 3-seed Kansas State today, 75-69, that final. I'm Jordan Black, and I'm joined by the host of Locked On Kentucky, Lance Dahl. Lance, this was a back-and-forth game, a really good game to watch. Of course, not the outcome Kentucky wanted. Give us your general impressions of this contest. Like you said, a really good game to watch, but not the way the Cats wanted to go out.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was definitely a fun round of 32 game. Both teams played very, very hard, very physical, a lot of effort in this one. I think that's clear. Shots didn't go down for either of these two schools consistently throughout the game. I think Kentucky obviously ended up on the bad side of that, missing a lot of threes. Kansas State, a couple of wild threes late to kind of give them the edge in this one. I think the storyline has to start there with two guys and Noel and Keontae Johnson just managing to find the bottom of the basket late after both these teams struggled to score consistently. Oscar Tshiebwe played really, really well in this game for the Wildcats, and something that Kansas State said before the game that ended up honestly being kind of true is they said that they weren't particularly worried about anybody but Tshiebwe, and he ended up scoring 25 for the Wildcats and kind of being the driving force for them. So overall, I mean, you out-rebound a team by 20, you lose by 6. That's difficult to do. I would say the officiating, especially in the first half in this one, was questionable. I don't think that's a bias thing. I think that's pretty straightforward. Just not a lot of consistency as a whole in college basketball when it comes to officiating, but certainly some questionable things on both ends in this one. But props to Kansas State, another really hard-fought game for them. And a very impressive win for them as well.
When you're Kentucky, being a 6 seed is generally not the standard, but you've mentioned that a month ago, going this far in the tournament or going farther wasn't necessarily what everyone thought that they'd be able to do. So can you give us some perspective on what this season has meant for Kentucky and maybe just give some perspective on what it means kind of going forward?
Well, coming into the season, there was a lot of expectation. Kentucky was the preseason number 4 team in America. Everybody was really excited about their new transfer pieces, guys like Antonio Reeves coming in, hoping that he could maybe spark something for the Wildcats. There was excitement about these freshmen. There was an expectation, and then things just sort of started to fall apart. At one point, Kentucky was 10-6, 1-3 in the SEC. Midway through the year, there was very quickly, all of a sudden, no expectation for the Wildcats to do anything this season. And there was the question of, what does Kentucky do with Cal? What does Kentucky do moving forward? What does this recruiting class look like next year? Are we going to be able to survive with talent, without talent? Just a lot of questions about this program. And then all of a sudden, I think it was a very solid coaching job by Calipari to just kind of flip the switch and kind of get Kentucky out of the mud. And they found a way to win some games, found a way to grind some games out in some close contests in the SEC slate. And I agree. The 6 seed is not the standard for Kentucky basketball. It shouldn't be. And I think moving forward, there is going to be a lot of conversation that I have on my podcast and with the people that I talk to about understanding that this year was what it was. And you just have to accept the fact that we got on a little bit of a slump in the middle of the season, and the Wildcats rebounded, and there was not a high expectation for them to do anything other than potentially make the Sweet 16. They got very, very close to it. But heading into this tournament, I even said, whenever I was doing my bracket, I said, I think Kentucky will win their first game. They'll fight valiantly against Kansas State, and then they'll lose in a close one. And that's what ended up happening. So for me, I think expectations have been met. For the fan base, I think expectations weren't met looking into the future, just kind of concerned about what this program could be doing. As we all know, they haven't made the second weekend of the tournament since 2019, 2018. It's been a long time for the Wildcats since they've made an actual tournament run. But again, I want to reiterate, for most people, this will be a disappointment. For me, I think the expectation was met based on how the middle of the season impacted what we were looking at for the postseason.
Generally, the recipe for Kentucky is a lot of one and dones, but usually for March Madness, that's not the recipe to get to a national championship game. What do you think is the recipe that works at Kentucky to make a long run in the big dance?
So this is an interesting question that I actually have been talking about all the way back into last summer on my show about, what does Kentucky's approach need to be? Do they need to start doing what some of these other teams are doing? Do they need to start doing what teams like Arkansas are doing, which is just implementing all these different transfer portal pieces, these plug and play type of guys? Do you need more experience on your roster? Do you need more guys that understand the college game instead of trying to get these 5-star freshmen? And I said, look, as long as Coach Cal is still here, I think his system is, at the end of the day, going to be more comfortable with some of these 5-star freakishly athletic guys. And you see next year's class coming in, some people jokingly, some people seriously saying it's the next coming of the Fab Five. A lot of really, really solid pieces in that recruiting class. For me, I think with the way Kentucky operates under Coach Cal, they need to have some sort of blend, but the focus does not need to be on transfer portal pieces. I know that some people may disagree with that. I think that you could definitely look at a lot of different other coaches and say, well, they would probably work well in similar situations at similar programs with more veteran talent. But I think for what Coach Cal wants to do, he's found success with these 5-star guys. I think we give him next year and see where he takes it.
You mentioned Oscar Tshiebwe. Can you put a fine point on what he's done for the program, what he's meant for the program?
He has been just a breath of fresh air in what has been a really awkward transition period, I think, for the Wildcats. Just a lot of soul searching to come this offseason after Tshiebwe departs. But to be one of, if not the best rebounder in the college game of at least the 21st century, maybe one of the greatest of all time, I think it's definitely great to see what he's done at Kentucky. It's just statistically making an impact on the floor. And then also what he's done off the court, talking about his faith, being very vocal about how he feels about things. I think he's a very solid kid. I'm very thrilled to have seen him kind of make the rise that he has, transferring from West Virginia, being able to start to do some things with NIL, making an impact in the community at Lexington. He's just a great person. He's a great rebounder. And I really do hope that he's able to excel at the next level because he deserves it.
Awesome. Well, that's great stuff. Obviously not the ending that Kentucky wanted, but great insight from you, Lance. We appreciate it. For more on the Wildcats, make sure you are subscribed to Locked on Kentucky. And for a full view of the bracket and all of the action still to come during March Madness, make sure you are subscribed to Locked on College Basketball. That is part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks, everyone, for watching and listening.